Hey, what is up everybody? I'm Chance and we are back today for another episode of Our Life, Beginnings and Always. Let's jump into it. Ooh, there were some laughs. When you got up to the menu, you realized that there were more than just crepes. There were definitely crepes, mini crepes. However, the stall also had a lot of different drinks as well. Teas, smoothies, milkshakes. Jackpot! She grinned and held out her fist for a fist bump. Miranda high-fived it. The two stared at the awkward, vaguely turkey-shaped hand configurations they had made, and then slowly put their hands down. Cove's mouth twitched in a smile. You stepped up to order first. You glanced back at the menu. You ordered a crepe, you ordered a drink, you ordered a crepe and a drink. We're gonna order both. Hello, I'd like to get a crepe and a drink, please. There was a woman who looked a little older than you taking the orders. She smiled back at you, ready to hear the specifics of your purchase. For the crepe itself, you wanted plain strawberry chocolate green tea lemon. Ooh, we want strawberry. For the filling and toppings, you picked whipped cream, powdered sugar, chocolate syrup, and that was all. After you picked the size, you were asked what you wanted to drink. You ordered, got a coffee? Ooh, iced coffee. Yep, getting a coffee. You could also add a mix-in or toppings for the drink. Oh man. You chose to add whipped cream, you chose to add chocolate syrup, you chose to add caramel syrup, you chose to add boba pearls, you chose to add condensed milk. We don't need anything extra. You paid and stepped aside to let your friends order. Cove got a lemon crepe with powdered sugar on top and the mixed berries. He also got a plain strawberry smoothie. That sounds good. Terri went crazy with toppings. Although she ordered a plain crepe, she had it smothered with whipped cream, cream cheese, chocolate chips, chocolate syrup, and bananas. Miranda opted for a frappe with caramel syrup and condensed milk. The four of you stood off to the side as you waited for the treats. I heard what you ordered, Jamie. I'm glad I'm not the only one to go for a drink and a crepe. I couldn't pick just one, and why not? Exactly. It's gonna be good. Jamie, man, your crepe is gonna rock. High five for topping appreciation. She held her hand out expectantly. You gave her a high five, you left her hanging, you fist bumped her palm. Let's fist bump her palm. Terri stared at your hand. She blinked. She looked between Miranda and you. Is this just a thing now? I don't know what you mean. Miranda's voice was surprisingly serious, while her face looked like she was seconds away from laughing. Terri shook her head dramatically. Order for Jamie? Oh, I've got to get that. You grabbed your order. The others didn't take much time after that. With the goods collected, everyone admired their treats. Terri dug right into hers, and Miranda gave hers a tentative sip. Terri nodded acceptingly with her mouth completely full. Miranda tilted, this is making me so hungry for crepes. Miranda tilted the frap over to her with a grin. Terri sipped it and clearly loved it. She raised her, I freaking love just how hyped Terri is. She raised her crepe over to Miranda. You could tell that there was an intent to make it look nice, but with all the assorted toppings piled on, only so much could be done. Miranda took a huge bite with gusto and sighed happily. Terri seemed satisfied and took another slurp of Miranda's drink. They had both only gotten one thing, probably because they knew they'd end up sharing. True. Cove, do you want to share ours? Terri, Miranda, can I join in the sharing? You offered to share your order with everyone? You said nothing and started consuming. Let's offer to share it with everyone. You held your order up a little, bringing it to attention. Your friends looked at you curious. Anyone want some? Yes, dibs. You can't call dibs on someone else's food. Except that I did. Everyone can try it if they want. Thanks, that's so nice. Miranda took the first round and then with a smirk passed on your order to Cove instead of Terri. Aw, Randy, my dibs! Sorry, you can't claim Jamie's stuff. Fine, I can wait for it. Chuckling, Cove seemed to greatly enjoy his taste and didn't pass it on to Terri until he'd stopped chewing slowly. Finally, she accepted your offer with gusto and took her taste. It's so good. Thanks, Jamie. You gave your reply in between sips of Miranda's frap and munches of Cove's crepe. With that, Cove started to eat his treats in earnest. You saw him take a huge gulp of his smoothie, and then without swallowing, he added a bite of his lemon crepe. Perfect. Cove? Terri tore off a piece of her crepe and held it out to Cove. Care to make a trade? Sure. Instead of continuing to loiter in the parking lot, the four of you started to walk down the sidewalk. There was a lot of sharing going on, with crepe bits and toppings being passed around. You wouldn't have been surprised if Terri ended up drinking more frap than Miranda did. But you kept going down the way, eating, drinking, and chatting. You hadn't realized just how far the group had wandered until you ended up at the now leaving sign. Oh god, that's far, isn't it? I mean, I guess it might be a small town, but still. Apparently, you were about to just walk right out into the middle of nowhere. Terri took her mouth off of Miranda's straw and stopped sipping the frap. Impossible. Preposterous. How are we already at the end? I always forget how tiny this town really is. Cove chuckled a little and swallowed a chunk of Terri's crepe. It kinda is, huh? It didn't feel that small when we were growing up. It definitely felt bigger then. It's always seemed like there wasn't much here. There are tinier places out there. You guys are lucky to live in decent-sized cities. You quietly nodded along. You shrugged. I'll agree. It definitely felt bigger then. There was a time when Sunset Bird had felt huge. It seemed as endless as the ocean. There were always some street you hadn't wandered down, something new for the tourists. But now, you had realized it was just a pawn in this big, big world. Seeing the definite end only reinforced this. Here was the boundary that proved your hometown could be walked out with ease. Oh my gosh, how freaking crazy. I guess this means we should probably head back. One doesn't just walk into nowhere land. We're not only one, Terri, there's four of us. Terri scrunched up her face, not wanting to acknowledge the bad joke. She decided to ignore it. It stinks having to go all the way back. Yeah, but it's not like there's anything out that direction. And if we did keep going forward, it'd be an even longer trip home. You stared off into the stretch of road as Cove agreed that he didn't want to go out any further. Can we take a break here first before we turn around? We've been walking for a while and someone's finished my drink. Right on cue, Terri loudly sucked air from the straw. It was so good. Miranda looked at her, but Terri remained unrepentant. In the end though, it was agreed to hang around the sign before heading back to the car. It didn't take long to finish the rest of the food and drinks. Everyone gathered up the trash and stuffed it into bags and pockets for now. The group relaxed on the grass, keeping count of all the cars that drove past. It was not a high number. 14. The newest passing car drove into town from somewhere outside. But as the vehicle came by, it slowed down and you watched as it ultimately rolled to a complete stop. The black car parked right by the now leaving sign. Everyone exchanged a baffled look. But then the tinted window rolled down and the driver peered out. As soon as you saw his hair, you recognized him. No one else you knew presented themselves so distinctively. It's Baxter. Hey neighbors! Cove also jolted with recognition. He pasted on a cordial smile and waved politely. Afterwards, he put his mouth back over the straw of his long empty drink as if trying to act cool. You waved at him. Hi. You just wondered what he was doing here. You wished he hadn't stopped to chat. You smiled and were excited to see him. Let's say hi. You inhaled and tried to be loud enough to account for the distance and car noises. It's nice to see you again. Somehow he was able to project his voice in such a way that it still sounded smooth, even though he was definitely speaking loudly. You wondered where he'd learned to do that, and you thought about the odd picture this made. A fancy black car pulled over to talk to a group of teens, mostly still in beachwear. Miranda was incredibly confused and shrank back to watch. Terri tilted her head in an unspoken question. Cove made a quick gesture pointing towards Baxter, and a light bulb went off for Terri. Ah, that's the new person in the condo. The bee man, right? Yeah, Baxter. Oh, I wasn't sure if I'd ever actually see him. Her voice was quiet. Miranda usually got shy around new people. Terri was quite the opposite. Incredible. This is perfect. Terri hopped up from the grass and ran to Baxter's car, all full of excitement. Behind her, Miranda picked herself up and dusted imaginary dirt off her clothes. She sent a searching look to you and Cove, to which Cove shrugged. Miranda nodded and, with clenched fist, hesitantly followed Terri. Terri bent down to talk to Baxter through his window. She blasted through introductions, with Miranda putting in a shy wave. Cove looked at you. He still clearly had no intention of going over. You stayed with Cove. You went over to Baxter. You encouraged Cove to come. I'm going to encourage Cove to come because he can give us a ride back to our car. Come on, let's go and see him. Cove pouted. His cheeks flared out in a childish puff. I don't want to. I don't know what to say. You can go. I'll just wait until he's gone. You really should come. You can do it. Do you want to be the only person who doesn't go see him? Well, why can't you stay here with me instead? You sighed. He was definitely going to be difficult about this. Some days he really was that same grouchy 8-year-old who you met all those years ago. You stayed with Cove, you went over to Baxter, you physically pushed him towards the car. Do you really hate him that much? We'll stay with Cove. The two of you waited for the others to finish up. You couldn't hear what they were saying from there, but you could see from body language that Terri was up to something and Miranda didn't like it. You and your neighbor exchanged a look. After Miranda seemed to calm down slightly, Terri turned around to wave at you. She put her hands to her face to make a megaphone. Come on, get over here. Baxter's gonna give us a ride. See? Cove's mouth popped open in surprise. Then his lips curled together in clear displeasure. I should have known. She's always pulling something. He took a slow breath and then shrugged. Guess we have to get over there. It's gonna be really awkward now since he knows we tried not talking to him. Yeah, we can't hide over here forever. You followed him over to the car, apparently about to get a lift. You were just happy to get a ride. You were kind of annoyed that Terri did this. You felt uncomfortable to be getting a ride from Baxter. I'm just happy for the ride. Regardless of anything else, you didn't have to walk back. That's what counted. You were grateful to Terri for arranging it. You arrived at the driver's side car window and Baxter smiled welcomely. Hello. Hey. Cove greeted him mildly, his expression cautious. Howdy, Baxter. Alrighty, plan made. Let's hop in. You excitedly opened the passenger side door and buckled yourself in. The car was pristine, and you were right near the new car's scented air freshener. Baxter had the air conditioner on cold, but low so it was pleasantly cool inside. A nice relief from the summer sun you had been baking in all day. Your friends clambered on in back. It definitely seemed the slightest bit squished back there. Welcome to my vehicle. I hope everyone is comfortable, and if someone could point me in the right direction, we can be on our way. Terri went back to navigator mode and outlined their journey. It was basically a straight line with one turn at the end into the parking lot. Baxter nodded from up in the driver's seat and pulled back into the road. Luckily, the street was still dead empty. It took no time at all for Baxter to park right next to Cove's car. There wasn't even enough time for a proper conversation to start. The occupants didn't seem to mind. There were smiles all around when Baxter parked next to Cove's car. Woo! Miranda clapped quietly as Terri cheered. Cove chuckled nervously. You smiled? Yeah. You clapped as well. You nudged Baxter in a friendly way. You were relieved you had made it. We'll say yeah. You felt a little bad about being so loud in a car, but Terri took it as a sign to cheer louder herself. Baxter laughed in the celebration. We've arrived. That was easy. Terri flung open her door and climbed out. Thanks. Everyone else exited the car as well. The group thanked Baxter with varying degrees of enthusiasm. Baxter himself got out too. Everyone congregated again in front of Baxter and Cove's cars. Cove looked at the back of his and frowned. He'd finally discovered the wash me you'd put on it. Huh, I wonder who did that. You snickered along with Miranda, who realized you'd been caught. It's a mystery. Right. Terri bounced over to Baxter and offered her hand for a handshake. He accepted it easily with a charming grin. You're a pal. You're too kind. It was no trouble whatsoever. I'll be keeping this car all this summer. If it suits you, you're welcome to take my number and give me a ring whenever you're in need of another ride. And that goes for everyone here. I have a car. Terri busted into laughter and Miranda fidgeted. She did not know what to do with that. Baxter really went fast, didn't he? He noticed her discomfort and smiled with a soft tilt of the head. I'd be happy to help again, but that's the only reason I offered. If you don't need it, you can pass on it. Can I have your number? You stayed silent. Do we ask for Baxter's number? Let's get Baxter's number. Can I have your number? He beamed wildly at your response. Oh, absolutely. Baxter pulled out a pen he had with him for some reason and jotted his number down. He passed the little paper to you and you accepted it. When her giggles subsided, Terri put a hand to her chin with brows furrowed. I wonder, would that option be available right now? You could valet us somewhere cool. What? Cove was taken aback. He put a hand on the hood of his car. Weren't we going back to the neighborhood? Wasn't Baxter going back to the neighborhood too? Why would we go somewhere else? Because we can. Miranda squirmed nervously and then committed to piping up. We could go to the park near my place. It's a really nice place to hang out. You and Cove shared a look. The big park was pretty nice. Let's do it. Baxter tapped the side of his face and thought.
It's doable.
That sounds doable. He glanced at Cove and then switched focus to you. Well, we have 2 cars. If some people want to go to the park, I could still take the others home. But if everyone's going, it wouldn't make sense for me not to. You decided to go back to the neighborhood with Cove. You wanted to continue the hangout session at the park. What do we do? I want to do both. Maybe we should hang out because then we would be leaving Terri and Miranda with this new person. So let's continue the hangout sesh. You weren't ready to tag out yet. You came to the decision and turned to Cove. Let's go to the park. Alright, park time it is. He smiled a little. Terri cheered and Miranda nodded happily. You felt like you made a good decision. To the car, again! Which car? There are multiple. You watched to see if Cove or Baxter had an answer. Cove sighed and ran a hand through his hair. He tapped on his car's hood nervously. We can go at Baxter's, I guess. It'll be less of a pain than bringing both. We're all going to the same place. Are you okay with that, Baxter? Certainly. I meant what I said. We need a lift, I can give it. Neither you nor Terri brought up any objections, and so the gang climbed back into Baxter's nice ride. This time, Baxter offered to turn on some music. After all, it would be a little bit of a drive to the park. Play what you normally would. Don't mind us. Can we see what's on the radio? I'd rather not have any. Play what you normally would. Don't mind us. Yeah, I would like to see what kind of stuff a guy like you is into. I hope the playlist lives up to expectations. He plugged his phone into the car with an aux cord and turned on some alternative music. With the music taken care of, Baxter put the car in drive and pulled out of the parking lot. The lot was practically empty, but you noticed that he was careful anyways. During the trip, it changed to hard rock, punk, and even screamo. Despite his personable demeanor, he didn't seem to like upbeat tracks. You know what? I'm down for this Baxter guy. He knows what's up. It took a while to arrive. By the time you got there, the sky was golden with the orange streaks of sunset. Everyone got out of the car and started to stroll along one of the paths. You walked by the basketball court and some picnic tables, taking in the sights. Miranda seemed amazingly content, the location helping her relax in the company. She led the way, sometimes stopping here or there to point something out. Baxter turned to her and nodded along. I've never been here, but I definitely see the appeal. Man, this is Randy's stomping ground. She's been coming here forever. Seriously, Miranda, have you ever had a birthday party that wasn't here? You missed out, Baxter, because every year she has a blowout party at the park. Imagine balloons everywhere. Miranda looked down, suddenly shy again with the attention on her. She let out an awkward laugh. Yup, every year. The group followed Miranda along to one of the picnic tables. She took a seat and Terri slid in beside her. You spent the evening chatting amongst each other. Everyone got to know Baxter a little better, although you could tell Cove and him still hadn't fully clicked. At one point, Miranda found an abandoned soccer ball and started tossing it around. To me! Miranda threw the ball to her. Terri caught it with a smile. Think fast! She chucked it at Baxter, who only had enough time to squeak. It bounced off his chest, and he stared at it, dazed. He blinked as if he needed time to process what exactly had happened, but then grinned dangerously. He rushed after the ball, and rather than throwing it back, he surprised Terri and everyone else by lobbing the ball high into the air. You bent your neck back to watch its ascent and inevitable decline. Baxter hooked it with his foot and launched it up again. Wow. There were oohs and ahs from Terri and Miranda. Baxter gave them a very proper bow. When it finally fell to the ground for real, Cove was the one who picked it up. He was impressed, and he wanted in. With that, everyone was drawn into the game. It was unspoken that whoever did the fanciest trick won. Most of the gang was not particularly practiced with throwing a ball, so not many of the tricks were actually good. However, there was a lot of laughter, and you got to see Miranda pull off a round off where she threw the ball with her feet, so that was cool. Oh, that is really cool. The sunset eventually darkened into night, and the streetlights turned on. Your group's chosen picnic table laid in a bubble of light. The occasional bug cast a shadow as they flew by. It's a little strange being here so late on a normal night. Usually, that only happens if there was a party, or an important game, or a fireworks show. Fireworks! Her yell startled Baxter, who was throwing the ball nonchalantly from hand to hand. He missed catching it, and it sailed sadly back to the ground. You looked at Terri for her loud outburst. I just remembered. There's going to be a fireworks show tonight. It's in the city. Oh my god. At everyone's questioning look, she huffed and tried to explain further. It's some celebration for the opening of something. I don't remember what. I don't think we could get into the actual event anyways. But We should still be able to see the show if we get close. You can't keep explosions in the sky away from the public. Cove raised an eyebrow and drummed his fingers on the table below him. You want to change locations again? Wasn't the last 2 times enough? Terri rolled her eyes and then shook her head. To her, it was obvious. Don't be a wet blanket, Cove. What about you, Jamie, Randy, Baxter? Don't you want to see fireworks? I mean, I would say Cove's right, that's too much. But it's freaking fireworks and it's summer and we gotta hang out before like true adulthood sets in. I guess they are fireworks. Alright, whatever. What's one more scene change? Yush! I knew this was a good idea. In turn, 4 sets of eyes looked to Baxter. As the driver, his answer made or broke the plan. He chuckled softly. In for a penny, in for a pound. I'll go. Genuinely, there's nothing better to occupy my time tonight. We better hurry or we might miss it. Cove rolled his eyes but laughed. Everyone headed back to the car yet again. Terri brought out her phone to navigate to the city and Baxter stepped on the gas. You are on your way. I love that. I love the transition into like a city. They didn't need to do that, but they did. Baxter drove past the buildings aglow in warm yellow light that cut through the navy black night. One office building had bright LED lights that cycled through a whole rainbow of hues. It was difficult to get through all the traffic on the road, let alone find parking this late at night. Luckily, Miranda had eagle eyes when it came to scoping out a spot. She pointed to a sedan pulling out and Baxter parked within seconds. Not wanting to miss the show, you all raced down the waterfront walkway to find a place with a good view. What about here? Cove peered across the rails into the distance and shot her a thumbs up. It was relatively quiet, isolated, and you could see skyscrapers. That was a good sign, based on where Terri thought the event was. Yes, this should work just fine. She stopped and tried to catch her breath. Her hands on her knees, Miranda leaned against the wall between establishments as she recovered. Cove took a moment to breathe as well, stretching his spine back. He looked up at the sky in wonder and let out a relieved sigh. Think we've missed anything? Not a chance. Nothing's happening and we can't be so late that we missed everything. Maybe it'll start soon? You felt excited. You thought this was kind of a silly situation. You were nervous about how close the fireworks would be. You felt pretty laid back about the whole thing. We're excited. Fireworks. The spontaneity of the whole thing combined with the amazement of fireworks was a recipe for you to be bursting with anticipation. It couldn't start soon enough. Terri led Miranda to sit down on the oval slabs along the path. Miranda took a seat and began tapping her knees together as she waited. Terri, meanwhile, crouched more than sat. Baxter flashed an unreadable smile at Cove and you, and then took a spot next to the girls. Cove seemed surprised and looked over his shoulder to watch him begin to chat with Terri. I guess he's trying not to upset us? Whether he left to make Cove and you more comfortable, wanted to escape potential awkwardness, or if he really had just hit it off with the girls earlier was anyone's guess. That's nice. Something seemed to strike Cove as he tried unsuccessfully to hide a smile. Most of us are in swimsuits. Wearing beachwear in the middle of a city in the dark while waiting for a fireworks show was clearly the joke of the day for him. Cove snorted once and then looked back up at the sky. Oh, that's so pretty. If a flash lit up the sky with a brilliant green, your eyes flew off the building in the distance and silently watched with bated breath. You heard a second boom and a red firework lit up the night. Woo! The show's starting! It's so pretty! They came running over to get closer, positively beaming. Terri pressed herself to the waterfront fence, getting as close as physically possible without just going swimming again. Baxter followed a few steps behind. His mouth hung open at the sight for a moment until he caught himself and once again shifted to pleasantly composed. More fireworks went off, shooting out hundreds of tiny sparkling lights. The colors stood out starkly against the dark of the night. The biggest ones washed your surrounding with their hue, turning your world blue, then red, and then golden. Did I deliver or did I deliver? Miranda's eyes glittered, and she lightly bumped Terri with her hip. Good job. Terri stumbled at the friendly nudge, but was pleased with the compliment. She grinned back. Miranda lightly swung her hips the opposite way to give you a bump as well. It was friendly and soft. We did it! You smiled at her and nodded. You were pleased that you hadn't missed any of the show after all. You were glad that everyone seemed to be having a good time. You were uncomfortable with how near it was. I'm glad that everyone is seeming to have a good time. Cove stared up to the sky with wonder, while Terri squealed in joy after a series of especially grand explosions. Miranda pointed to one that was shooting up and then gasped when it bloomed and turned into a huge sphere of violet light. Baxter smiled in appreciation. It was good to see your friends in high spirits. The rest of the group huddled around the railing to take in the show as closely as possible. Miranda stood close by. Terri's hands gripped the top. Cove laid his arms across it while leaning forward, and Baxter rested his elbows on the rail, putting his back towards the fireworks. What? He seemed to have more fun watching the others than the actual show. Oh, she pointed out a golden firework and beamed. Ah, that's so cool. Terri held up a hand for a high five and Miranda obliged her. Terri whooped and shot you a smile. What color do you think the next one will be? Without giving Baxter a glance, Cove answered immediately. Green. Green. It was orange. Baxter chuckled, but wasn't interested in calling Cove out for being wrong. Is that your favorite color? Green? It's one of them. I think that's nice. It matches you. And is yours black? It's one of them. Cove smirked just a little and left the conversation there. That was cute. That was really cute. You stood next to the girls, you stood next to Baxter, you stood next to Cove. We're standing next to Cove. Cove looked away from the fireworks and grinned at you. He was glad to be spending time with you and tilted his head at a spectacular multicolored firework above. I think that's been my favorite so far. He shot you another look and nodded, wanting you to move closer in front of him. You could see the night's lights reflected on the water. You rested your arm on Cove's shoulder. You leaned your body against Cove. You stayed like that. Wanna start making moves? Do you wanna start making moves? You leaned your body against Cove. Because why not? It'll be cute. It's fireworks. You rested against his side and let yourself relax. He felt solid and sturdy beside you. It was comfortable. You took a moment to watch him and the fireworks reflected in his eyes. Cove grinned like a kid. Cove's gaze drifted from the show of dazzling light straight at you, and he sighed dreamily. You didn't know when you'd last seen him so blissful. The spectacle continued to up the ante by bringing more fireworks out at a time. The colors danced across the sky and reflected over the water. You reached out a hand and watched as it was tinted green while a big boom sounded. Fireworks were a normal summer tradition, but this was admittedly an unconventional approach. Showing up in the city last minute to watch a display from a technically private event? That made this feel special in a way that just planning to go to a public fireworks show never would. Terri's idea may not have left you with a lot of time to prepare, but it sure led to a unique situation. It was clear this was an unforgettable night. As the finale sounded, blazing the sky with unbelievable beauty, you remembered thinking that there might never be a night exactly like this one again. Not for the rest of your life. Oh my god! You plan to hold on to the feelings you had in that moment for as long as you could. Yo, that is going to get me. Because it's so true. There's just something about being a young adult and just spontaneously being able to do these things with your friends that eventually leave. I don't know. Oh man, this one hit kind of close to home, so wow, yeah. All right, so yeah, that is the end of that section. Wow. It was a lot, but it's exactly like freaking young adult life. Like, especially the ending there with the fireworks. Like, just spontaneously going to these random places and hanging out. Oh, man. It's getting me right here. Right here. That's where I'm feeling things right now. But, yeah. Anyways. Let me know down below about, like, an adventure that you've had before. That was kind of similar to this. Or is this game giving you all the nostalgia like it's given me? Oh, man. Anyways, yeah. If you liked it, give me one of those likes, those thumbs ups, the little button that looks like this. And if you want to keep seeing more of this content, please hit that beautiful red subscribe button down below. And as always, I appreciate you guys. Bye.